Well, welcome to the Digital Dialogue. Steffen Faurby, still the newbie at TAFE relatively, who's got the Herculean task of turning around this amazing institution that's much loved, but probably needs a spit and polish to make it relevant for the future. You've come from a distinguished background in public and private transport management, taking public assets and into transition and tidying them up as well. So you're a reformer by background, Steffen. Maybe for those who haven't had the chance to meet you yet, you're fairly new in the role. What is your passion coming to this gig in TAFE? Your first, I think, education posting. So what excites you about it?
Oh, I love what TAFE does. And I mean, I didn't grow up in Australia. I grew up in Denmark, over in the other end of the world. So I don't have this lifelong experience with TAFE, but I've been here for 10 years, and that's long enough for me to have worked out the incredible importance TAFE has for the community, both in a metropolitan setting, as I'm in here as we speak, but also when you go out into the region, you find out that TAFE campuses are pretty much lifelines to the local communities. What we do is incredibly meaningful, and it is incredibly important for people out there needing training, needing education, but also the industries that are clearly struggling with skills gaps and issues attracting people with the right training, the right competencies. We can play a role in that alongside with many other educational institutions, and increasingly in partnership with other educational institutions. That excites me, and the massive, massive task we have to skill the workforce of the future is exactly why I joined this. I also like it the fact that we are providing opportunities for those who perhaps need a little bit of extra help, people with disabilities or people who for some reason are a little bit disadvantaged for whatever reason that might be, that we have the perfect courses and the perfect training for them as well.
Well, of course, you're also you're entering this massive period of reform, empowered by the government to take on the beast that is TAFE, to make it very relevant in the future. Are you a subscriber to the view, like me, that let no crisis go unleveraged? Is this actually, despite the drama of pandemic and bushfire, is it actually a good time for change and reform?
Absolutely, I am. I mean, I would not want to dismiss the importance and the severity of the situation we all find ourselves in, but we are in that situation. We might as well try and make something good out of it, and I will absolutely use this opportunity to leapfrog TAFE forward into the future. And we're doing some really interesting things at the moment that are exactly indications of that. We've just put on 21 short courses to industry, free to, or rather not to industry, to people of New South Wales, free of charge. And most of them are in areas such as business, but there's also in areas such as healthcare and so on, where people can, in their own time, online through TAFE Digital, do a short course in whatever subject that interests them, free of charge, at their own time, and then use this opportunity for them, of course, to upskill, reskill, or qualify themselves for new jobs. The reason why I mention it in the context of transformation is that it actually allows us to fast track the process towards a more sophisticated, more nuanced, and more advanced way of providing education online in what we call either blended learning, or for that matter, digital learning online. So this is a great opportunity for us to fast track that. We've got 9,000 teachers who at the moment are training and practicing and upskilling their capabilities to provide training online. It doesn't mean that we don't want to have campuses going forward. It means we want to have a model that caters for every student, no matter their preference. Some of us like to go into the classroom and do the training there. Some of us like to learn online. Some of us like to do a little bit of both. And we've got all three options and a few other variations within those subjects happening at the same time.
Well, I hear you've had quite the response from communities. That's wonderful. You mentioned the campuses as well, and obviously you spoke about TAFE having such a seminal role in Australian New South Wales culture. It particularly resonates in Western Sydney. It's truly one of the most important institutions in the West. I don't think it's always seen itself that way, and it hasn't always projected itself that way, unlike maybe its university equivalent. But a lot of those issues in Western Sydney are about there being a high construction base or traditional industry, a changing community that needs retraining what you've offered, but also the physicality of TAFE. The fact that it has campuses everywhere you want to be. And in fact, a lot of people want to be where your campuses are. I know there's at least a couple of hospitals who are eyeing off existing sites, Liverpool, Bankstown, etc. Are you working well managing, like schools are done, managing your own infrastructure better now?
We manage it well. I mean, we're going through a big process of understanding exactly what this whole mix looks like. I mean, just to put things into perspective, we have in Western Sydney alone 23 facilities. We cater for around 9,000 students a year just with Western Sydney campuses. That's roughly a quarter of the students that we have. Did I say 90,000? I hope I did, because that's the number. So for us, it's really important to get that mix right. And we can only get this mix right if we listen very carefully to what industry wants, but also if we leverage off the opportunities we have in the placemaking precincts that happen out in Western Sydney, where universities, TAFE, industry, and many, many other interest groups come together and form partnerships together. That's what we do. And in the heart of all this, of course, for us, are the campuses. And we want to make sure we make absolute best use of them.
It really is important because at the very backbone of the society as well. To that end, I mean, you think about TAFE in Western Sydney, and it's a more traditional view of TAFE. I know this is changing, but at the base level entry courses, it surely is the way out of a kid stuck in the hood in Mount Druitt, in Aids, in Green Valley, the great public housing estates, the communities where, despite the boomtown all around them, in most of Western Sydney, there's still 25 to 30% youth unemployment in some of these tough areas to move. Surely TAFE has a really seminal social role, part of that, the social progression in those communities that I know you take seriously.
Oh, we do, and we're very, very proud of that. And also, I think we should be, because there's been some tremendous success over the years, way, way, way before I joined. So I can take zero credit for any of that. But these 130 years old can absolutely take credit for that. But I also think it's important to make the point that it's not everything we do. We do other things as well in the partnership with universities and industry, and embark on education models where higher education, vocational training and industry needs come together in a perhaps more, in a different way, where we're looking to be partners to universities around the precincts. And there are some great opportunities for that in Western Sydney, which we are front and centre of, in partnership with universities and health and education, all sorts of industries that we see, and you would know all too well from that part of the world. We're very excited to be part of that.
I mean, to that point, you're part of, TAFE's part of a thing called CHEP, the Campbelltown Health Education Precinct. You've been actively engaged in Liverpool as well with the precinct there. And do you sometimes feel, though, across the region that TAFE's been seen to be, the little brother to the big shiny universities? I mean, there is this sense of the external perception of a two-tier education system, and we, for one, keep trying to break that down. Despite my 8 years on the university board, I've made a strong advocate to try and bring TAFE and uni together. But is there opportunities at places like out of Western Sydney near the Aerotropolis where we can actually see high school TAFE universities all finally working together and not this sort of tribal existence that's always kept them apart?
Absolutely. We're quite advanced in conversations, I'd say, with every single university pretty much about this. And whilst it might have been, like you indicated, Chris, earlier on or in years before, where TAFE was kind of the second alternative or the second pathway, it's very, very evident to me in conversations with vice-chancellors from pretty much all universities in and around Western Sydney, but also Greater Sydney, that those days are gone. Universities have realised the importance of pathways that transcend between vocational training and university training. And they come to us with very, very, very serious partnerships, which we are very, very happy to embark on. I also think it's interesting to see the work that happens, some of the works and reviews into the vocational sector, which is on its way both on state and federal level, clearly looks to find ways where universities and vocational training can work much, much closer together. It's about the outcomes for the students. It's about the outcomes for industry. It's not about TAFE. It's about universities. We are facilitators and enablers of that to happen. And the more we work together, the better outcomes for the students. And for
so you mentioned the university TAFE relationship. How is it having a couple of university chancellors running a review of TAFE in the great David Gonski and Peter Shergold? How's that process going for you?
Well, we haven't quite. I think this whole COVID-19 process has put it all on hold for a little while, for good reasons. But, I think it is fantastic to have Shergold and Gonski lead this work. They are incredibly competent in their own field, but also both have demonstrated a desire and an appetite to zoom out and have a look at this more holistically. So as far as I'm concerned, I warmly welcome the work, and I warmly welcome the opportunity to work with them both to get a great report and some good recommendations come out of it.
They are a class act. Those two together can move the world. And what it does show, though, and what I think we've spoken about before, the benefit that universities have had of their, I call them celebrity chancellors because they're more than that, but full of enormous reach, capacity, etc. With respect to all those who've come before in TAFE, I think TAFE has never been as much blessed with all of that external support. And that's around a community getting in behind you. For one, can I say the Western Sydney community values very highly the TAFE engagement, wants more engagement, wants more ambition on its infrastructure, wants more ambition on its curricula, and certainly more ambition on its collectivisation with other forms of education. And I think there is a real chance under you, and it's a tribute to you. A lot of those views are changing under your leadership, that there is a warm embrace, not only because you're bringing plenty of money to the table now for something in Batteries Creek, but there really is, I think, a change to greet you on the other side.
We've reached out to industry, and I've spent a fair bit of my time since I joined, and so has many other of my colleagues here, to really understand what industry wants and what industry needs. And absolutely will we as TAFE do what we can to facilitate that whole dialogue and understand that we're a cog in a very big machinery around education, but it is much more than education. That we're talking about these precincts where there's lots of opportunities, business opportunities, job opportunities, research opportunities. So gone are those days where an educational organisation like TAFE sees itself boxed into exactly what it does, and then it perhaps cares less about what other parties do around them. That's just not the way we want to do it. We want to look at outcomes. We want to look at partnerships and collaboration and understand that we play one role amongst many other stakeholders in getting those outcomes. And I think the signals are exactly the same everywhere I look. I mean, in your area with the great work that you do in Western Sydney to get industry, academia, vocational training, consulting firms together, and the conversations we have around the table there clearly suggests that it is a collaborative approach, and it's an approach where every one of these individuals understand that they only play one role, but the best outcomes are when we all work together. And I think this is what makes this incredibly exciting to be part of.
Well, I can tell you're changing the world because we had half a dozen people wanted to sponsor this session today, so we had to beat them off with the stick. They all want to be, and I would say 5 years ago, the thought of having TAFE in the room wasn't exciting, that community. So I think there is a change. I think you're helping to lead it, and importantly, it's responding to. Just that last point about change, there'll always be resistance to it. We have views around whether the old days, whether the middle class matrons of the eastern suburbs can do a flower arranging course on the public ticket. We'd probably like to see the role TAFE can be in economic recovery, in retooling, in how do you take the old production line staff of Western Sydney and turn them into workers for advanced robotics and advanced manufacturing. Why would unis only be doing coding that should be a TAFE product? Tourism courses at TAFE, all those things that the new TAFE can apply itself to the skills and demands of a sector that will soon flick the switch back to strong recovery and to drive the place forward. So are you confident that all through the business you can bring everybody with you, or if you can't, move them on, so that it's a tough business, this major reform? So
you know what, most people that I've come across, in fact everyone that I've come across in this organisation, love to be part of a success. Right. So you look at the opportunities just in Western Sydney with the Western Sydney Construction Hub, with the Specialised Advanced Training Centre, the Innovation Precinct, the Hawkesbury Agricultural Precinct, the Penrith CBD revitalisation. The list is endless, and every one of these opportunities present opportunities to be part of a great success. And I certainly have yet to come across anyone who wouldn't want to be part of all that stuff. Now, we do flower courses for people who, and other courses where perhaps you can argue that it doesn't necessarily close a skills gap, it doesn't necessarily fix a problem for industry. But I think we increasingly will focus our effort, our time and our energy on the areas where we really can make a difference. Dare I say, in particular, around recovery that we are coming into, hopefully soon after the COVID-19, and the incredibly important role that organisations like ours will play in reskilling and upskilling people into the jobs of the future.
Well, I know for the Premier now, the confidence the government has in you, so the job is fantastic. Can I ask in closing, you've been here 10 years, are you a Eels guy, a Giants, a Wanderers? Which Western Sydney football team has become your favourite?
Well, I follow a football team from the Northern Beaches close to
Manly.
That's as close as I'll go.
So we like you in spite of that. So thanks for the work. Thanks for the leadership showing now, and let's all sign on for the Reform Pledge and keep TAFE as great as it can be.
Thanks very much, Chris, and thanks for
Steffen.
the support we get from you guys. And I can absolutely assure you, we will work with you, and we will be there with industry and with anyone else to make this a great success. So thanks for the opportunity to talk to you.
Stay safe, my friend.
Thank you. You too.
G'day everyone from lockdown. I hope you're all well. And Steffen, thank you for an insight into TAFE, its challenges, and the future that your vision holds for it. Bridging the gap between industry and education has never been more important. Coming out of COVID, and equally to fulfil the opportunity that sits in Western Sydney on the back of significant private and public sector investment. At Deloitte, we're passionate about delivering dynamic careers, ones that are meaningful, that allow people to make impact and provide opportunity and choice. We're committed to working with TAFE to see it transform into a dynamic provider with vibrant precincts, digital platforms that rival any education provider in the space, and is seen by all graduates as one of the #1 choices for how they advance their career. Chris, Adam, the Dialogue, thank you for keeping us connected during these troubled times.